Everyone moves to Michigan thinking it's going to be cheaper.
Yeah, boy.
But what if there are hidden costs that could absolutely blindside you when moving here? I'm guessing you guys would probably want to know about those, right? Well, I'm talking about the sneaky expenses. I'm talking about the ones that are not going to show up on your Zillow search. They start to feel small until they really aren't. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through the real hidden cost of living in Michigan, the ones that I've lived through, and the ones that I've seen surprise way too many families. And make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to share with you the thing that caught us off guard after we moved and had really nothing to do with money at all. Hey, if you're new to me and new to my channel, my name's Eric and I make these videos to help you guys make better decisions when making that move here to Michigan. My wife and I moved back from California, and since then we've helped a ton of families do just that. And so today's video, we're gonna get into some hidden costs here in Michigan that you're absolutely gonna wanna know about. So let's dive into it. All right, so the first one we're gonna take a look at are the long commutes here in Michigan. Now, if you're in California or New York or somewhere with a lot of traffic, you're like, Eric, it can't get much worse than this. I totally get it. Like when I was in California, the 405, never want to experience that ever again. Okay. I just cannot picture me sitting in my car for hours at a time, just trying to get to the same destination over and over and over. Like that's enough to drive anybody crazy, but I digress. But I don't want to mislead you and say there's no traffic or the commutes here in Michigan aren't as bad as you think, because Metro Detroit is really spread out. When you look at on the map, and if that's all your reference point is right now, is looking on Google Maps and putting directions from this city to that city, or your office, or where you might be working to the home that you might be looking at right now, it can be misleading. What you want to do is really look at the times that you're mapping that out. Are you doing it in the morning when there's a rush hour? Are you doing it in the evening when people are going home to work? Are you doing it at school drop-off hours? Like look at those daily commutes and see like what might seem like 30 minutes, on an off peak hour could turn into 45 minutes to an hour based on rush hour traffic. So make sure you're looking at that. And with the spaced out area here in Metro Detroit, the one thing that I hear often is like, we don't mind driving, 30 to 45 minutes. You can get pretty much anywhere in Metro Detroit in under an hour. But here's the reality. Most locals are not traveling more than 15 to 20 minutes outside of their radius. They're going to their schools, drop off, they're going to the gym, they're going to the grocery stores. So make sure kind of what your stretch is. Do you want long commutes? It could be a half hour to 45 minutes, even to a freeway, from some places, if you're in a remote area, or even adding another 5 to 10 minutes if you're kind of off the highway and need to drive to the highway. So these are all these little things that, we pull up on the maps and make sure if you're looking in an area, how long it's going to take to get to the highway, and then what's the actual commute time to your office or the schools or things that you're going to be doing on a regular basis. So make sure you dive into that and pay special attention to the peak hours of rush hour. All right, and the second hidden cost that you need to know about is the property taxes. As a real estate professional, I want to make sure you guys have a good idea and a good footing on your property taxes here. So don't be surprised on this. Michigan doesn't have the highest property taxes in the country, but they can be a little bit sneaky. You might see some gorgeous homes in Oakland County or Washtenaw County with a manageable list price. Then you realize the taxes alone are $800 to $1,200 a month. And here's what surprises people. Two homes in the same price point can have wildly different tax bills based on the city, the township, and what the last owner paid for it. And here's something that you guys need to pay special attention to. There is something called uncapped property taxes here in Michigan. So basically, if you own a home for a long time, your property taxes will be capped 3 to 5% year over year. So let's say in the area that you live, the home values have gone up 15 to 20%. And then every time those homes sell, they are uncapped. Okay, so meaning the current owners will only see a 3 to 5% property tax increase year over year, whereas the new owner of the home, this could be you guys, moving in, is now that home is reassessed, and that could be at a higher tax bill. So what the current owner is paying for taxes could go up quite significantly once those are untaxed, and that usually happens in the next fiscal year of your tax bill once those are already paid off. So just pay special attention to that. We do go over this with you guys when buying a home. We look at the taxes, we look at the future estimated value and the future estimated taxes on that home to make sure you guys have a good idea of what those monthly payments are going to be. They might be lower in the beginning, but they're eventually going to go up. So my best advice to you is don't fall in love with the house before checking the property taxes, or you could be writing a check that you just are not ready for. And no, you cannot always appeal them. That's a rabbit hole that we'll save for another video. All right, and number 3 are the winters here in Michigan. And now there's a lot of associated costs with the winters here in Michigan that nobody really thinks of. For one, well, if you don't have a winter wardrobe, you got to start buying some warmer clothes. Okay, that's an expense on the wardrobe that you're just going to have to bite the bullet on and buy some warmer clothes. So, yeah, I know, Michigan does have winters here, but they are beautiful. They're covered in snow, trees, and cozy nights. But here's the part that no one tells you. The winter does cost money. We're talking about snow removal services, higher heating bills, weatherproofing for your home, and things that you may not even be thinking of right now. If you got four-wheelers and, lawnmowers and things like sprinkler systems, you got to start weatherproofing those. The number one requirement on my wife's list is four-wheel drive, and that is a non-negotiable. Okay, she does not want to be carting the kids around and sliding all over the road with front-wheel drive. Just not going to have it. And I'm here for it. I don't want that either. So here in Michigan, you don't just prepare for the winter, you do pay for it.
Stupid winter clothing drive.
And the one cost about winter that I had not realized until I started having kids was the cost of indoor kid activities. Okay, now I'm talking about, the kids that are bored and they can't go outside or they don't want to go outside because it's too cold, right? The cost of holiday travel and we need a winter getaway, flight to Florida, all of those things start adding up. It stacks up faster than you think. All right, number 4, what you need to pay special attention to are the neighborhood surprises that don't show up on the listings. You might find a beautiful home in a quiet subdivision only to realize it's got no sidewalks or no kids on the block, or the park nearby is actually just a patch of grass next to a drainage ditch. And some of these communities look amazing in the summer, but they feel totally different once the snow hits and everybody's inside. And if you're looking online, every neighborhood's going to look perfect because you're seeing the curated version of it. But in person, you start to see where the gaps are. So if we were to do it over again, we would drive through neighborhoods on the weekends, talk to neighbors, go to the grocery store down the street. That's how you really learn what it's like to live there. And make sure you have those honest conversations. Ask them, what do you hate about living in this neighborhood? What would you change? You have nothing to lose. So ask the questions to get your honest response instead of just saying, hey, we're thinking about moving here. How do you like the neighborhood? Well, of course, they like it. They're going to tell you the good parts, but ask the direct questions of what do you not like about this neighborhood? What should we know about, right? It may be insignificant, but may be really important to some people. All right, and hidden cost number 5, and I want you guys to pay special attention to this one because we are talking about the housing sticker shock here in Michigan. Now, I know what you're thinking, Eric, I thought it was affordable. I thought moving to Michigan was going to save me a bunch of money, and it can. And it probably will over the longer period of time for a better quality of life and opportunity cost and things of that nature. When we're talking dollars and cents, housing costs are still more affordable than most major cities in the area, or in the United States, I should say, or the nation. However, Michigan still does have some very expensive real estate in the most highly sought after areas. So, when you're talking about cities like Ann Arbor, Northville, Birmingham, parts of Brighton, Rochester, Grosse Pointe for that matter, places in Detroit, they've all appreciated a lot in the last few years. We've seen a big migration of people leaving a lot of the cities in California, New York, Illinois. We've had that reach out, from Texas and Arizona, yeah, we loved it. However, it's just way too hot. We're just over it. We want to move to a 4 seasons, kind of more nature, more climate. We just need more of that. So as of shooting this video, the average cost of a home is $267,000 in the Metro Detroit area. Now, that is just the average cost of a home. So when you baseline it and you're looking at all these neighborhoods and cities and areas that you may be considering in the Metro Detroit area, you just remember 267 is the average. Okay, so that's entry level into those neighborhoods. Now there's some below that. Okay, what that tells me, and I know these for a fact, I can pull up in a map and I show clients this when they're looking and they say, hey, we found a $150,000 home or a $200,000 home in this area. Well, I can cut straight to it and paint a picture of the lifestyle and the area and the type of area that might be a little bit rougher. However, the cost of homes in some of the more highly sought after areas with good schools and top rated schools for that matter, the average cost of a home in Ann Arbor is right around $550,000. If you move over to Northville, the average cost of a home is right around $475,000. If you're going to be in some of the subdivisions, where you want a little bit more square footage, or maybe you want to be on a golf course community or be closer to the downtown community, those properties could cost you anywhere from $800,000 to $2 million. To be in those areas. So if you are looking to buy a home here in Metro Detroit, these are the things that you need to pay special attention to. Make sure you understand the lifestyle of each of these areas and what they offer, but also the price point, so you can make sure that it's right in line with what you're looking for. So in the beginning of this video, I told you there was something that caught us off guard when we moved back to Michigan, and this cost Brianna and I dearly. We still, we wouldn't change anything, but however, I wish we would have taken this a little bit more serious, which is why I'm bringing it to you guys. And that's the cost of rushing the process. Okay. This one, I see it all the time. People get excited. They see a house, they make an offer, and they rush to close. And then they don't realize, the area, the school, or the commutes that I just talked about in this video, all the things that, make or break the lifestyle. And you're just assuming that every place in Metro Detroit may be a little bit similar. All right, I just got a call from a guy who grew up in St. Clair Shores 60 years ago. And he asked a great question. His question to me was, hey, what's St. Clair Shores like nowadays? I haven't been back in 60 years. Can you explain the vibe? And I got a good feel of Brighton, Ann Arbor from your videos, but I really don't know what St. Clair Shores is about. And those are the questions you should be asking, right? That's the thing that really matters. Don't rush the process and get caught up in homes, because I can assure you that there's a home in every single community.
And that's the one, Marvin. That's the silver tuna.
Some might be more difficult to find. You might not be finding what you're looking for, but I can assure you that, there's a reason for that. Those might be a very competitive market, and we need to take a different approach to find you an off-market property. Like my clients that we had move from Florida to Grosse Pointe. Okay, we got them an off-market property, and they are so happy with it. So there's alternative approaches to then just rushing in, finding the home. Like, oh, we need this home because we know the market in Metro Detroit. No, just slow down. Let us take you through the process and get you on the right start to finding your ideal home in the right community here in Metro Detroit. So yes, living in Michigan is absolutely incredible. We absolutely love it. The seasons, the pace of life. It's the reason we're still here. But just know, it's not just about the mortgage rates and the square footage. There are real hidden costs, to living here in Michigan. Hopefully some of the things that you learned in this video will help you, make better decisions when making that move here, or at least budget, more accordingly. And if you can plan for them, you'll be much more confident in your move. So if this video helped open your eyes to some hidden costs here in Michigan, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment with your biggest question about living here in Michigan. And if you're serious about making that move, whether it's in 1 month or 12 months from now, it doesn't matter. Book a Zoom call with us. Use the link in the description down below. We'll get a game plan together that fits you, your lifestyle, your goals, and your family. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.